In the darkest night, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious, and never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to our SAS community here at Surviving Together. I am Mac, and we are going to talk about child-on-child sexual abuse today. Yes, big topic. Big topic that I am going to split into several different videos for a couple of different reasons. But first, let's just chit-chat. Let's get a chance for people to get in and join our stream for a little bit. Thank you, Janet. I'm glad that you can hear me okay. It's always so weird. There's been a little bit of a delay when I watch myself, so I'm trying not to. Looking at the camera versus looking at myself. So I'm trying to do that more as well, but it's really, really hard. I knew I shouldn't monkey with stuff once I've already started things. Hello, 7th. How are you doing today? So glad you could join us. You know, 7th, I know next to nothing about you. Do you have children? This is important for something that I want to talk about. Not just the fact that we're talking about children and children's sexual abuse, but I'm just curious. I know Janet has a few kids, and I have got to tell you something that happened to my son this week. And I have to tell you something that he did to me, which you both should laugh. You really all should laugh, but I want to hold those stories. So we're just going to say, first off, how was your week? How was everyone's week? Is everyone doing all right? If you notice, we are not simulcasting on the lifeboat. This was not a topic they really wanted to touch, which is understandable. I understand it's, you know, it's a rough one. No, it's a rough one. And even trying to do research on it, as much as we have talked about it here, there's just still not a lot out there. And how disheartening. And I know I shouldn't be surprised, and I am not really surprised, but it hurts my heart a little bit for the kids who may think to themselves, I can't tell mom or dad about this for whatever reason, or they don't have somebody else that they can trust, and they think, you know what, the internet, right? Everything is on the internet. I feel so alone. I want to talk to somebody or want to find out more about this. If you Google child sexual assault now, there's so many things that come up and so many resources that come up for you. But if you try and Google child sexual abuse, you do have things come up. But a lot of times what you're getting is studies, psychological studies, which not real helpful for a 10-year-old kid. You've got your psychologists on YouTube talking about why it happens. Again, a little bit more helpful, but not exactly what that 10-year-old is looking for. There just aren't the resources because we haven't made it a priority. Isn't that what we were talking about before with just regular child sexual abuse? Adult sexual abuse, basically rape, right? It was wrong. You shouldn't do it. It's kind of as far as people got, right? And before we started recognizing date rape and marital rape and all these other things that can happen to a person as an adult that count as sexual assault. When we started making it a priority, we started opening up the conversation and we started normalizing it. Now it's a lot easier to talk about child sexual abuse. So much easier. And we're slowly breaking down the stigma of sexual assault in general. I think that the kids coming up these days, if they are able to disclose that they have been the victim of a sexual assault, being able to get them services, just having the likelihood of them being able to tell somebody and actually be believed is much greater. We still have a ways to go, right? I think all of us admit that and we can see that in terms of the studies that bear out the statistics. And if we have any qualms about that, all we have to do is go back to the fact that we know that sexual assault itself is underreported. So if we're getting bad statistics now, if everybody was reporting their sexual assaults, I just think about how much worse it would be. I honestly have no idea what actual numbers would look like. I don't know how anyone could tell you. I don't think you can extrapolate from what we have right now. I honestly don't. So it begs the question, how big of a problem is this? Individually, in each type of scenario, we don't know. And until we have much greater reporting at the time or close in time to incidences, we're not going to know. But what we can say, what we do know, is based on the reporting that people do as adults, that at least 30 to 50% of us are going to be victims of sexual assault before we're 18. That's some raw numbers. That's some huge stats. And this is based upon people reporting as an adult that they were sexually abused as children. Remember, the average age for disclosure is until your early 50s, if you ever disclose at all. So yeah, these numbers are a lot bigger than we think they are. So to have a handle, to have any kind of a handle as to what's going on with child-on-child numbers, no idea. All we do know is that we're pretty certain that it's on the rise. Now, as we have been speaking about over the past couple of weeks, a lot of areas are on the rise with numbers in terms of statistics that we're getting. But it's kind of par for the course. We expect that now because there is an increase in reporting. As we're successful and as we're able to normalize the conversation, people can feel more comfortable coming forward, that they're going to be heard, that they're going to be seen. And that's wonderful. Absolutely fabulous. I'm thrilled that that's happening. But it does tend to skew our statistics then, and you need to look at them with that concept in mind. So we can say, okay, is a 2% or a 3% increase really that significant? Meaning, is this just increases of disclosure or is this increases of incidences? Because there's a big difference between the two as to what we need to be, working on and where our focuses need to be. Your comment got, I have no idea, Kim. Did you yank it themselves? I don't even have a wrench. I have no way to yank anybody's comment at this point, so I haven't a clue. So we have Janet, we have Seventh, we have Kim here. Welcome, 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 guys. Looks like it might be a small little group here this afternoon. It is actually sunny for the zillionth day in a row here in Michigan, which is incredible. So if people, you don't see Kim. Well, that's my other's keeper. Her first name is Kim. Do you see my other's keeper, Seventh? Yeah, no. So I have no idea what you said that got yanked. Please say it again if it was important. You don't see Kim, but you saw her when she arrived and said hello. Oh, maybe she's not in here anymore. I do not know. I think you guys can see things a little differently than I do on my end. So, yeah, was here, maybe not. Well, hello to anyone who's lurking. I've had an interesting week. It's been up and down, emotionally, physically. Just it's been kind of a weird space for me this week. I think that one of the reasons I'm going to split today into two is I've been working on this for several weeks now in the background. And I was going to start this last week, but there was some more research I wanted to do. It was really some more stats I wanted to try and find. I wasn't all that successful with it, but it has taken a toll on me. As you may know from my introduction, my intro stories about me, I am a survivor of child-on-child abuse. And it was a long time before I was able to feel the space to be a survivor. I never felt like I could be a victim because I was a kid and he was a kid, and I said, okay. And he couldn't be an abuser because he was just a kid. And all that stuff gets jumbled up in your head, and it's really confusing because just adults abuse people, right? Just kind of like we used to say, only strangers abuse people, right? Yeah, how wrong we got that one. So it's been a little triggering this week for me. I think on a subconscious level, I think that maybe is where some of my health issues have come from. Mainly digestion. I've not been eating very well, and I just haven't felt really good. So kind of think that's why things have been like this week for me. So I'm giving myself the grace and not trying to shove this all into one, nor have this be a 3-hour video right up front. If we post this to even hour-long segments, I will be happy. I do want to go through sibling on sibling essay in a separate video, only because, like the difference between adult female perpetrators and adult male perpetrators, there isn't a whole lot of difference, but what there is is significant. The stuff that is there is definitely worth a look, and it's worth an extra talking about, to realize child on child is difficult enough, and then you talk about when it's child on child when they're two siblings, and how hard that's got to be for the entire family. So we're going to be speaking about that in a separate video, and one of our members has graciously offered to come on and share her story with all of you. And whether we do that as a third video or part 2 of the second video and combine them in the same one, I'm not 100% sure. Kind of depends, I think, on how things go, how the conversation is. Honest, in a way, I'm not surprised to see a whole lot of people not in the chat. When I was speaking about having this subject in some other arenas, I had a lot of people telling me, I'm so glad you're talking about this. I just can't be there to listen. Yeah, that is just too triggering for me. And wow, does that speak volumes? Volumes. Because what does it say? It says there are more people out there like me. Like Janet. Janet saying she was essayed at the age of 8 by a friend of the same age. She asked herself her whole adult life whether or not it was essay. I told myself it was just kids being kids, but you're definitely completely controlled by this friend. Yeah. Common refrain that you hear about with the child on child abuse is it's just kids being kids. And that's the reason that it's easier for parents to sweep things under the rug, because they're dealing with, oh, it's just kids being kids. They can rationalize it away, right? You can think about it in your brain and go, yeah, I don't have to spend too much effort or time on this. I don't want this to be true. There's a good reason it cannot be true. Therefore, that's what I'm going to go with. That's what I'm going to run with. And to a certain extent, kids being kids is true. Kids do these things, right? Kids do engage in sexualized activity. But what kind do they engage in? And this is really where it came down to things. And what I wanted to do was to listen to enough people that I felt that I fully had a handle on this as to where we are right now. Where is that line? Because so many people were asking, okay, there's child on child abuse. We understand it happens. But how can you say it's not just a kid being a kid? Well, there's several things you need to look at, as we do with all essay, right? How old is the child? How old is the perpetrator? How old is the victim? What act is being performed? And really, with those pieces of information, those 3 pieces of information, you can get a real good idea as to whether or not this is just a kid being a kid. Part of that is we have to, as parents, understand what is normal sexual development for a child at a particular age. And this is why I keep going back to, and I harp on, believe your child. Because for most everything, right, that we talk about in sexual assault, and we're going to save looking at pictures, we're going to save touching, just touching, like on clothes or whatever. We're just going to save that off to the side. Let's talk about everything else. This is not something you would either A, expect a kid to know, or B, expect them to act on that knowledge. Your standard 4-year-old isn't going to go around asking to touch a male's penis. It's just not going to happen. Now, whether they're playing doctor or mom and dad, maybe they saw dad's penis and this was something that they're reenacting. Again, you need to know the context that it happened in. You need to know what were they doing? What was the act? What was the context of the act? And then you can go to figuring out, is this something that is just kids on kids? I found one woman who put things together in a way that really made a lot of sense to me. And so this is what I want to share with you, a way of thinking about child on child abuse and where is that line between kids being kids? How do we know? Well, there's going to be no foolproof way, especially if you've got kids explaining it, differently. But in general, Maka Singh, I guess it's difficult because minor parties are protected with a different level of privacy, even if it ends up reported. Yeah, to some degree. However, it's stats of conviction, it's stats just of reporting that, the studies have to be done in regards to those. No, they're not going to just be put out, not like adult essays will be. However, if somebody wanted to go digging enough, I mean, there would be numbers there that they would be able to get their hands on. The problem is it's just still so underreported. All essay is. But if you want to kind of look at it as an slope, go from adult to child on child. You've got this grade curve of, what's at least most reported to most underreported. All of it being underreported, at least to one degree or another. So where is that line? We look on child abuse with an eye towards, in most cases, they have found that the abuser child has either been essayed themselves or they've seen something. Now, whether that's somebody else in their life in regards to sexual acts, or whether they've seen it in pornography. So they're either reenacting experiences that they had, whether that was actual experiential experiences or whether that was visual experiences. They have to get the knowledge from somewhere to be able to act it out. Because unless you're talking about a kid who is, say 12 years old or older, they're not going to have that kind of knowledge, usually, as to what goes where, how, all that kind of stuff. But if you've seen it before, if it's happened to you, well, then there definitely is a basis for being able to do that. Teen on teen. Hey, Jen, we're so glad you're here. Lurk away, work away, and we are still here too, and will be. So, trying to see how I want to organize this. So, I think teen on teen Older children on older children is something that I'm going to address in another video as well, because there is just a different dynamic there. And being able to parse out, say, you're looking at a 16-year-old with a 12-year-old, or a 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, it just gets trickier because what is in their wheelhouse in terms of knowledge is vastly different than if you have somebody who's 6, right? So it can be harder as a parent. They say, so and so touched me. Okay, then you've got to say, well, tell me more about that. Again, you need to know exactly what the incident was. Where was the touch? With what part of the body? Was it overclothes? Was it underclothes? Who was it? How old are they? Where was it occurring? Did they force you? Did they coerce you? Did it take them several times to get them to do this? Was this just something you were willing participant along with? And please, I'm only using that in one factor of a lot of things to go about discovering as to what happened. I am not saying that if you go along with it or you weren't coerced, that there was no essay. Please, God, never would I say that. All right. So just let me be 100% clear right now. See, this is what I mean. Jen Marie, I'm so sorry that it happened to you. Janet, I'm so sorry that it happened to you. Hi, Shannon. I'm glad you're here. Lurk away all you want. This is what I mean. I bet if we were to take a poll of the 165 people who are subscribed to this channel, how many of you were essayed as a child? I bet the numbers would shock us. I bet they would shock us. I know that they would shock me, because even having known about this for a couple of decades, I still didn't think it happened to that many other people. I mean, yeah, it happened to me, but I mean, come on, I'm just sensitive, so I'm just making a bigger deal out of, what was done to me. And yeah, technically I can call it essay, but was it really? And of course, these are all the things that go through my head. Because even as survivors, we try and downplay what happened to us, or we can. And this was one of them that, gosh, I thought I had to deny for so long, that giving it life, giving it breath, letting it stand and be on its own, that's been hard. That's been really hard. But it has made me more aware. And it made me extra vigilant when it came to raising my child. Because I knew that no matter where he was never safe from SA. Not unless he knew what to do. Not unless he knew what was okay and what was not okay. And even then, I couldn't guarantee anything for his safety. All I could do was do the best that I could and put him in the best environments that I could and cross my fingers and pray that I've educated him enough, that I've made the right choices in where he goes and with who, that he'll get out of his youth with his spirit intact. Again, I think that we would be shocked to know what the stats are. I'll tell you one piece of a stat that somebody was doing, and this was actually a number from several years ago. Like I said, it was a lot more difficult finding child-on-child stats. And this is actually from a study that they were doing with siblings, But the piece of it that just applies for everyone is that they said that juveniles are responsible for 40% of sexual assaults. Now, I don't want you to take that as 100% truth, but I know it's not that far off the mark. I want to find other stats to go along with that to either prop it up or knock it down. But that it's significant, we know that, right? And remember, a juvenile, what we're talking about is anyone under 17 and under 18, so 17 and under. And this is 100% true. This is 100% true. Mock says it's too gruesome to be told that it happens to children, but another child doing it would be too scary for people that want the bliss of ignorance. Absolutely. Why is it so easy as a parent then to rationalize it away? We don't want to think that our kids are being SA'd. And we certainly don't want to think that another kid is capable of doing this. They couldn't have meant any harm. And this is an analogy that I found really useful. And someone said, if an older child gets their hands on a gun and ends up shooting a younger child, and they didn't mean it, does that hurt the younger child any less? Does that bullet do any less damage because it was done by a child than an adult? No. So just because the abuser doesn't mean it, doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Your trauma as a survivor of child-on-child sexual abuse, no matter how much or how little you were touched, it's still traumatic because it is sexual touching that is not meant to happen to you at that age. It's stuff that you just were not meant to be exposed to. Your brain cannot wrap their head around it. You know, we tell our kids, be kids, because we don't want them to have to deal with an adult world, with adult things. So as we realize that abuser, that child abuser, is only reenacting things that they've seen or things that have been done to them, depending on how old they are, depending on what the circumstances are, we may choose not to hold that child responsible and have there be negative consequences to that child in terms of the legal system or, detention or anything of that nature, does not mean that they weren't abusing somebody. Because they were. And that child is going to have to come to terms with that. They both need to get into therapy immediately. What they have found, the few numbers that they have tracked, is they have found that if kids who were abused as kids abusers, if they get into therapy right away, the chance of recidivism, the chance of them becoming abusers later on in life is significantly decreased. because they're not growing up with all of that pain. They're not growing up with all of that uncertainty. Because don't think that that older kid who was that abuser, who at the time may not have thought there was much wrong with, acting out what his uncle was doing to him on his little sister, don't think that that's not going to weigh on them. The older they become and the more wise they become to the world and what's right and wrong, and oh my gosh, what did I do? They have to deal with that knowledge. And he might not have been held feet to the fire for consequences, but he still has to deal with that. And if it's not dealt with, that will bleed out in other areas as this child grows up. I guarantee you. This is why they are thinking that child on child is growing, is because of the number of incidences that are being reported, but also it's because of, with the number of incidences that are being reported, what they're hearing about, the context of those happenings have not been because that child, that older child, has been abused, but it's because of something they saw. And most likely, or most often, the highest probability, or I should say the highest percentage, was having seen other pornography versus having seen pornography versus having seen someone in person do it, or having seen just, an anatomical part in person. It's because of pornography. Why would that be different now than before? Smartphones, the internet. It's so much easier to get access to. I mean, one click and you're there. Sometimes you don't even have to click. I will say the internet's gotten a lot better at trafficking itself that way. I don't know if any of you others have ever gotten stuck in loops of just every time you tried to X out of stuff, more things popped up before pop-up blockers became a real big thing. That's the shut your computer down type of place. And, you just could never get out of that loop. Todd, welcome. You are our only wrench right now and today. So very much thank you for being here. Shannon wasn't grateful. I'm not sure. Shannon says, actually, there was a boy my age where there's inappropriate touching and play. I forgot about that. Yeah. How easily these things kind of slip our minds, especially for those of us who have been repeatedly victimized, right? That stamp on our forehead that perpetrators seem to be able to read because it's in some invisible ink that only they get the eraser, the fluid to make it show up, or whatever they've got in their eyes. Just feel like you got that stamp on your forehead. Yeah. As I was doing my story, it was days later, and that I remembered about a neighbor who had exposed himself to me after I was done babysitting for them. And I had totally forgotten about that because that's all it was. He exposed himself to me. I went and I walked out of the house and I left, even without even getting paid. I didn't care. I walked out. I went next door because that's where I live. And I went next door. I went inside the house. Mom's like, done babysitting? I'm like, yep. Next door neighbors want you to babysit again. Nope, can't. I'm busy. Nope, can't. I'm busy. I think they need to find a new babysitter. And I never said why, and there's no big deal made out of it or whatnot, because at that time I was 14, I think. I don't want to say been there, done that, but it's like In a way, it was. It's like, you're not the first person to expose yourself to me and ask if I wanted to give you a head. So, thanks, no. And I left. And I guess my psyche just didn't think that that was a real important thing to remember because it had lots of other things on when it was going in your brain. Todd, this is exactly one of the things that was going across my mind because this is what it was when I was a kid, playing doctor, right? This is the exact same situation that it was for me. He said, let's play doctor. Because just, hey, let me just see you without your clothes on, that's generally not going to get a kid into a room, is it? So he was old enough to know that playing doctor in the way that he was, since there was never any fake stethoscopes involved, there was never any checking of my heart or, anything. There was no other accoutrements around that says, we're just going to be playing doctor. We'd never done it before. We didn't do anything after. He saw something or something was being done to him. There was enough of an age gap. And so that's why, and Todd, you might have missed it when I was speaking earlier, you have to look at what the context is with these kids. You have to look at their age difference. You have to look at where they are developmentally, because just because they're even of similar age doesn't mean that they've developed similarly. You have to take into consideration all of these things, because is it just kids being kids playing doctor? It could be, and if you catch them just showing parts to each other and they're 6, that is pretty normal. They're curious about their bodies, and if a girl was to show a boy a piece of their body, they go, that's not what mine looks like. Because at that age, right, they both raise their shirts, their chests look exactly the same. Well, nothing to see there. Butts, they're 2 butts, they look the same. It's only the vagina and penis at that age they're going to look any different. So if the boy shows his and the girl shows hers, they're like, those are different. And usually that's all it's going to amount to. There isn't going to be fondling after that. There isn't going to be a repeat of going back to that over and over and over. Hey, let me see that one more time. So you see where we can get if we just look at the context, tease it out, figure out exactly what happened, with who, how, where, get all the information. Ta-da! I'm back. Nope, wasn't just you. It just started going rounds and rounds with me for me. I had no idea why. I also don't know why I am only on part of the screen and the rest of it is blacked out to the sides. I was doing something yesterday. I was trying to I was trying to get up the video that I did. I was trying to make it into a short and I had to change the frame size, but I didn't have a very successful time at that. So there is a new video in the video section. It's only a minute long. Hang on. Okay. Excuse me. Oh, Todd, don't worry about it. You're here. And honestly, I knew that a lot of people wouldn't be, or they'd be lurking, or they'd just be on replay with this. It's a tough subject. It's a very tough subject. Todd, this is certainly true for identification of a victim, right? Anyone who, even if they come from a good home, but if they're just tend to be more shy and reserved themselves, they don't have a lot of self-confidence for whatever reason, it could just be them. Anybody who's going to be an outlier, who is going to be easier to pick off. People aren't going to notice as much or as, aren't involved. They're missing. They're not as involved in the conversation, and what's going on at the birthday party or whatever. It's totally easier to pick those off. Again, look at the circumstances. Look at the context. Were these two kids who knew each other? Did they know each other well? Was it just a bigger kid and a younger kid from the neighborhood? Was this two siblings? All of that's going to matter as to whether or not any of this sort of thing, this needing to identify the vulnerable person, as to whether it even went into it. Because if somebody is just using another person for their own, I don't want to say edification, but they want to discover what is this? What is this thing that I saw these two people doing? They were doing it this and I want to, and it supposedly feels really good. And so I want to give it a try. And they pick their cousin, or they pick the, neighbor, or their best friend, whoever that other child is. So it depends a lot as to what is their goal, what is their aim, what is their intent. And all of these things you need to know about the abuser before you can take effective action. I mean, keep them apart, no doubt. Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, I think that's the case for most of us. You don't talk to a lot of SA survivors who say that, no, I was real popular and, I didn't have self-esteem issues, real high self-esteem. I had great parents. They were always there. They were involved in all my sports. That type of person just isn't identified as a victim by pedos. They're too hard to get. They're too hard to get alone. They're too hard to convince. They're too hard to push their boundaries. An adult may groom a child, but it's unlikely that if they're spending 2 years grooming a child, it's likely they have other children that they're abusing during this time, because a lot of them are not going to just wait until this one is totally groomed. Too high maintenance. Exactly. Yes, we were all misfits, therefore we misfit together. Okay, Anybody else have a kid who, when they don't want to do something, will do it so incredibly loud and obnoxious that they're hoping you'll come down and just say, just knock it off, just go do something else? Because I swear, that's not what's going on in my house at all. No. All right. Let's break things up a bit. Shall I tell you what happened to me the other day? And even I laughed because it's so quintessential teenager. I could not do anything but laugh. Okay. So we were doing stuff. Kieran was working on his car again. And my son was working on his car again, and he needed help. And so I was helping him with the muffler, lift the exhaust, and do all that. And I know parenting joys, right? And we got done. It was late. I said, you know what? Let's just order pizza. He had a thing to go to, a school function to go to watch movies, I think, that the kids had made. So in one of the classes. So he was going to go to that, and he was going to go with a friend, and they needed to be there in like an hour. And so I said, why don't you just grab pizza? Because there's a place just up the road from us. I mean, literally, it would take you 2 minutes to get there and back. I said, just order it, go there, slam down some pizza, and then go. So he leaves. He goes, I'm going to get the pizza. He goes, okay. And I got to pick up my friend. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, he's going with me, but he doesn't have a ride. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. All right. No problem. So then I get a call a little while later. And he said, yeah, Mom, I picked up the pizza, and I'm picking up my friend now, and I'm not going to have time to stop home. So, yeah, my friend and I will just have pizza for dinner. I just was like, oh, how typical. Don't lose out on my dinner. But whatever, I'll find something else. Not that big of a deal. It just was, like I said, it was just like to have a teenager again, right? It's just, yeah. Peanut butter jelly sandwiches from Mom. Yipper doodles. I have no idea what I ate that night. I have no idea. So that was something funny that happened. I laughed pretty hard about that. Now I will tell you the thing that outraged me with my child this week. I was outraged for him. He went to a welding competition yesterday, and there is basically like an all-around category. That means you do all the different types of welds that they have, and you're going to do them all, right? And there's this blueprint, and nobody's supposed to get it ahead of the competition, because that's the competition part. You all get it, and then you got to figure out they got these welds need to go over here, and then this side needs to get tacked on by a different set of welds. And so I was a little perturbed that, my son had seen the blueprints before, because I was like, that's not what's supposed to happen. Well, come to find out, everybody had the blueprints. I'm thinking, why do they do this as a competition if the blueprints are just freely available? I didn't understand it. And so what most of the places were doing is their kids had been practicing, actually building this stuff, had been practicing those precise welds with that precise material, and had been doing it for weeks and months, depending on where they were. I was dumbfounded. I was just dumbfounded. So he didn't place in the welding competition, which is fine. He came in like 11th out of his category or something, and there were like 30 kids in there. in that category. So, hey, 11th out of all the people who had been practicing, and he hadn't. I think that's pretty darn good, and I take that. So, and he is next on the list for. Come on, got a kitty cat who's joining us. He's next on the list for states. They have what's called a mites project, and so every. Oh, I'm getting my my earbuds. Ugh, and he pulled the camera. Goodness gracious. There we go. Oh, he's touching the microphone and yet my camera goes. Tell me how that goes. Oh, and you want to switch directions. Okay. Whatever. I don't have a blanket on my lap, so he's not real happy. He stared me down the other day until I put a blanket on my lap, and then he climbed in like nothing was wrong. It was pretty funny. Welding is an art. And so I'm proud mama at this moment. And I promised myself, I was never going to show off my son. I try and keep stories about him to a minimum because this is my deal, my channel. And therefore, he didn't ask to have himself shared. So, but put this up for you. See if you can see that. So that is a guitar on a stand that my son made for his mites project. So that Todd there. So there's a good. Yeah, there's the guitar. So this is what he made, and everybody was convinced that he was going to win, and then he was going to win overall. And I guess there was a certain segment of the judges who believed that the welding competition should be about the welds, not the overall project, but about all the individual welds. So you could have had a whatever, but if all your welds were perfect, these guys would have given you like a perfect score. So everybody voted for my son to win, except for these people out of this one school, because that is the thought that they had, that to them, that was the best. It's welding. Therefore, it's your welds. Yeah, but it's also just a competition of these people's final project. And so I think how it looks overall should be taken into consideration. Otherwise, I mean, expressionism, I suppose. You just got a bunch of pieces kind of, going like this all around each other or something. You could argue if it was art for that. But if you just made a cube, it's, it's kind of boring. It's not real exciting or out there. But you made perfect welds. The welds are important. But if they're good, I mean, real good, if they're not just, if every single one of them isn't perfect, and for somebody's project like my son's, this took a lot of welds, right? Because there's a lot of little pieces and a lot of things he had to do in order to get this done. And it wasn't just welding. He didn't just bend a bar and then weld the two pieces together. Most kids at the end of their second year should be able to do that. So anyway, oh, you want to see that too? Okay, I can show that. I gotta find where I put it. So my son also took woodworking this year because why not, right? It was his senior year. He had woodworking in middle school, but he hadn't taken it in high school at all. He made his girlfriend a cutting board earlier in the year. I think that was his first semester project, because he said the one they had sucked. And then this is what he made and brought home. Now, I'm going to get it close. Hopefully you can see without the what that carving is. Took me a minute. Yes, it's a welder welding something in front of him. The starburst there. And then, so this is a little bench. It's about 4 feet long, couple feet tall, something like that. And pardon me 1 minute. I have to check on something, guys. Hi, guys. I'm back. Parenting is great. Oh, so what do we talk about that? Oh, shoot. I keep meaning to ask. So I had my son, I had Todd make me a skull for my son as his graduation, one of his graduation gifts. And it came the other day. I gave it to him early and he loved it. Absolutely loved it and was amazed that, somebody in my community had made it. And I need to get a picture of it. And I haven't done it yet because he took it off somewhere and I'm not sure where he put it, somewhere in his room, which is a black hole of death. Stuff goes in and it never comes back out, I swear. Yeah, Shannon, thanks. Everything will be all right. Everything will be. Let's just say cleaning is ending for right now. Sometimes walking away is the best solution. So that's what is going to happen. And mom's just going to ignore the rest. Because that's what I'm good at doing right now. Because I'm busy. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things that this one person said, and I'm going to go over it again when we deal with sibling on sibling, because it's child on child, and so it's pertinent to talk about then. I already spoke about the one thing that, it is abuse. Even if the abuser, even if we're not going to put responsibility on the abuser's feet because they don't deserve it because of what they were acting out, because of their age, because of what they have understood at whatever their age is, it's still abuse. And that trauma is still real to you, especially now, because it's so many people. When you start this and say, yeah, I was too. Yeah, I was too. Yeah, I was too. And it's like, God, how many of us? And all of us to a one all thought this is an abuse. This can't be abuse. It was another kid, or I participated, or, whatever the reasoning was. To a one, we all just gave that one a pass. But that trauma stuck with us just as much as the rest of the trauma did. And I think even more so. I think for me at this juncture in my life, I am dealing with more of the fallout from this child on child incidences than everything else combined. Because I denied that part for so long. And then when I did get the right to feel like I was a victim, like something had happened to me, because it had, I was like, huh, okay, well, good to know. Now I feel whole in regards to that. I can call it what it is. I don't have to feel bad about calling myself a survivor. I am thinking I have an affinity with these people that maybe I don't. All of that was, so it's like, oh, it's okay. And that's when I put it in its box and put that whole box in the far back of my brain because, well, I was in college. I got other things to worry about, and that certainly wasn't one of them. I had enough things going on. So I just pushed it aside. I'm so happy you're going to go see your niece and nephews in 4 weeks. Oh, next week, 4-hour plane ride. 4-hour plane ride. Pfft, that's nothing. Abuse takes many forms. Not being noticed is one of them. You're absolutely right, Resin. You're absolutely right. Neglect is insidious. Because if you were to look in on a child on any particular day, you might not say they're neglected or not cared for, not well cared for. But you got to look at all of it. You got to look at that day after day after day after day. What's perpetuated during that entire time. And emotional neglect is one of the huge areas that we don't talk about. I know I'll end up doing a show on that later on down the road because it's been intertwined with a lot of things that I've been researching, a lot of the areas that we do amongst identification, but getting to a lot of the core issues where a lot of trauma comes from for kids. And the neglect issue is a huge one. And often where there's neglect, there's other forms of abuse. It's just a fact, right? Because what does that abuse do? It pushes you to the outside. It pushes you to other people. It pushes you to be alone, to deal with things on your own, to be the outsider. And so you are easy pickings. And that's how it kind of all relates and gets and is involved in this. I already talked about that. One of the things that I didn't say, though, I spoke about how easy it was for parents with the child on child abuse to brush under the rug because they can rationalize it away. Um, but also times because they just don't know what to do. I mean, what do you do in a situation like that? Okay, we find out what happened and we address the problem and you talk to the other kid's parents and you get your kid in therapy. That's kind of the bottom line. But for some parents, that's just too much to deal with. And so that's too much to think about. They may not be even in a place in their life or a mental wherewithal to have a discussion like that. There's lots of different reasons. But invariably, what is going to happen is that child, by not feeling heard, even if the parent says, I believe you, if they brush it off, if they rationalize it away, that child is just going to feel that shame and that guilt that feel like they did something wrong, that it's on their shoulders somehow. Because if something else big, right, is done to you, most parents take action. And so to see them not taking action on something that feels big to you, well, that's going to come out in other ways. That's going to make you feel bad about yourself. It's going to make you question yourself. And for a kid who doesn't understand what was going on in the first place, that's all kinds of confusing. Add on top of any other neglect, any other, abuse that they may be suffering from. Shan says, I never told my parents. I didn't for many, 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 many years. Janet says she didn't either until this channel. Janet, I am so glad that this is a safe and comfortable enough space that you're okay sharing that with us. I feel honored. I truly do. And each and every one of you deserves credit for that as well, because it's this community that we have created, this connection between people who generally don't ever get together. And the only times I see a group of sexual survivors is when I was at like a YWCA function and we were doing something with the domestic abuse program, the domestic abuse and sexual violence program. It's about the only time you'd see people really gathered together. Now, there are some organizations who do have walks. There's a Take Back the Night walk, which is initially was started, just like it says, for women to be able to take back their night, to be able to walk wherever they wanted to without being accosted by anybody. So there are advocacy groups that do this, but in general, just you're not going to find a group of people just gathered around. And it was funny. I was watching a YouTube thing and thinking about how to grow the channel and what I wanted to do, what kind of content did I want to make sure we had as a base before we ever grew big, or for there to be access to. And I think that was one of the major reasons why I decided to try and cover as much as I could of so many different subjects each time I did a live, because I want there to be that information. So if people choose to come to this channel for information, that they find it. And hopefully that draws them into the community and they stay for this wonderful SAS community. But if all they come is for the resources and they find those resources, I'm okay with that. So in the coming months, by that I mean probably after June 1st or July 1st, I'm going to be doubling down on my efforts to make short videos, less than 10-minute videos ish, on the subjects that I've already covered, so that every live has a corresponding short video. Let's say shorts, a short video along with it. That was my vision when I initially did this, and the amount of research and work that needs to go into some of these subjects till I feel comfortable presenting with something is a lot. In addition to just running a household and working and, being a mom and making thumbnails, trying to deal with technology that I'm absolutely horrible at. It didn't go exactly the way I planned, but I still feel that vision, and it's something I still want to get back to. I'm going to try making a few more shorts as well. Now that I'm dialed into how it needs to be. I know less than a minute, but I just didn't understand why my videos still weren't uploading. Now I just have to figure out how to get them in the right frame width, and we're golden. And you should see some more shorts from me then. Either that or everything's going to be taken from my cell phone, because it's only an issue with PC. So anyway, I think that is actually all I had to talk about with this. Oh, actually, two more things. Yes, Shannon, I'm keeping Wednesday at 7. Unless I'm told differently by you guys that you need something else, I fully still plan to have Wednesday at 7 and Saturday at 3. I might start adding a Sunday. I'm not sure. But you guys tell me, drop a comment, send me an email if you would like a different time, if you would like a different day, if you would like an addition to or an instead of. Let me know. This is your community as well. I run the channel. I put up the content for you, but I really want to see, especially as we start getting through all the subjects, there's so many different rabbit holes we can go on. And there's so many nuances. And I've already gotten a ton of suggestions from you guys, and I've added them to my list. And the list is pretty long. Shannon, I don't know what, I'm on Eastern time, so I base everything on Eastern. If I was to do a Sunday, let's take it. What time of day would be good for you on the weekend? Is a daytime good like this? Being a Sunday day before work would, I don't know how many people go to church, or if Sunday mornings would be a good time. Sunday evenings might be a good time as everybody's winding down, just kind of going. Or would something like a Monday at the beginning of the work week work better for you? Let me know your thoughts. I'm happy to add an additional day, actually. I'll speak more about that in just 1 minute. Let me get these final thoughts out that I have in regards to the child-on-child abuse. Hypersexuality. I wanted to touch briefly on this because it's something we see all the time with child SA victims. And I always thought of it in terms of promiscuity, which of course is one form of hypersexuality. And a lot of children who are SA do go on to be promiscuous. Again, it's an acting out or a reenacting of what they have seen, of what they have experienced. Some psychologists think that the hypersexuality, just in terms of speaking sexually, suggestively hugging, or being inappropriately kissing, and I'm speaking a child doing this, or showing their genitals, all of this kind of hypersexuality is the result of the brain trying to make sense of stuff that it just has no reference for. It somebody did this to me, so I'm going to do this to somebody else, and maybe it'll get explained to me. It's kind of what I got from all of that. I'm sure a deeper dive looking into specifically hypersexuality, I'd get a much better talking point for you. But that made sense. It made sense. I never thought that it was just the result of having been sexualized. So just because I've been sexualized, I'm going to be hypersexual. It's not a one to one to one. It's not it has to be. Just like not all abused kids grow up to be abusers. So, but the ones who are hypersexualized, it makes a lot of sense that they're doing this in an effort to understand it. And because they don't understand that it's wrong, and they don't understand how it's wrong in a certain situation. But it's a real good cue that they've either seen stuff that is not appropriate for their age, or they've done stuff or had stuff done to them that is not appropriate for their age. The final aspect, and it's something that we're going to speak more about when we talk about sibling and sibling abuse, because I think the decision as to whether to come forward, either with law enforcement or taking your kid to a therapist for SA, it must be a tougher decision when you're dealing with sibling on sibling. And I'll tell you why I say that. I never gave it much thought. But with the whole mandatory reporting aspect, I can see how some parents would hold their kid back from therapy, not wanting to risk the investigation that would fall from taking their kid to therapy and having their kid tell the therapist, I was SA'd, because they have to report that. That's what the mandatory reporting means. They have got to report it to the authorities. Who are the authorities? The authority is DHS or CPS or whatever alphabet letter agency covers Child Protective Services. And depending on the circumstances, then it will be sent on to law enforcement. Usually it's that department will then go do their investigation. And if it's substantiated that there was sexual assault, then the legal investigation will be started. Now, depending on what that person's circumstance, what the parent's circumstances are, there may be reasons why they don't want CPS notified. They don't want somebody coming to their home. They don't want somebody digging into their stuff, into what's going on with them. Maybe there's other abuse or neglect going on in the home. Maybe there's things that are in the home that they don't want others to see. I don't know, like maybe a meth lab. Pick something. There's reasons why they don't want CPS to get involved. And therefore they end up denying their kids therapy that they could use desperately. Because if they don't get them in therapy there, where's that child going to get help? I don't think it's the parent who's going to deny their child help because they're afraid of the CPS investigation that's going to follow, that they're then going to sit down with their child and try and be their child's therapist. Maybe they'll send them to their priest or parishioner, their priest or, minister or whoever is the head of whatever religious organization they have, if they have one, if that's something that they believe in. I guarantee you that 9.5 times out of 10, that child is not going to get any services. And that is just such a shame. Now, what happens when that same parent is in a position where it's a child on child essay? Easier to rationalize it away. They don't want CPS involved anyway. It's just a kid. And there's all these reasons that they can rationalize. Now, make that other kid your other child. Well, hell. What kind of parent are you, that you let this happen? You're one kid to your other kid. What kind of kids are you raising because one kid did another kid? And there's all sorts of questions that are going to be brought up in that investigation. And even the best of parents, that can be overwhelming. Very overwhelming. Because what happens in that case is substantiated. They got one kid being accused, one of their kids being accused of another kid. And if that abuser child is not of an age or was not of an age where they're going to hold him or her responsible, legally responsible for what they were doing, the next step is looking at the parents. And are the parents now guilty because they didn't prevent this from happening? Are they guilty of such neglect that their inaction allowed this to happen? So bringing something up like that to somebody who's got a legal obligation to report it and putting themselves on the line and their family on the line, not to mention just what they're going to be dealing with behind the scenes anyway, especially if they believe their children and one's admitted to it, or say the one says, no, I didn't do that, but they're believing their child who's reporting it. I mean, it's just a messy situation all the way around, right? And then you bring CPS in, it's just going to be even crazier. And again, who suffers? It's the child that suffers because they're not getting the help that they need. Janet says, info for any Canadians listing. Child therapy is covered by provincial health care in cases of SA, especially when financial affordability is an issue. It's covered. Therefore, seek therapy for your child. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that there is therapy that it's covered if you're covered by Medicaid or Medicare, I guess it would be, which is going to be our federal state-run program for those who their income is very low. And there's even now, like in Michigan, they call it healthy kids. So you can afford something, but you can't afford it all. There was like a $10 deductible for per month. So you paid $10 a month and your kid was covered. And I do believe in situations like this that it is partly covered or all covered. I know you have like a certain number of visits for mental health just in general, but I think, don't quote me for the US, but I think that there is um, that there is coverage in cases like this. But you have to seek it, right? And again, by seeking it, there's mandatory reporting. In the mandatory reporters, it goes to CPS, and CPS is mandatorily required to start an investigation. Now, they may substantiate it or unsubstantiate it, and it may be an unsubstantiated claim because not because it didn't happen, but because of a whole list of other factors that they're looking at. They may call it an unsubstantiated claim. So you've just got a very difficult situation. And it's unfortunate because something happened, right? Something happened for this abuser child to be acting out this way. By acting out, I just mean acting out whatever their experience was, whether that was a, a physical experience or whether that was just a visual experience, watching, seeing something that their brain can't wrap it around, that is not ready for this type of input. Just a real difficult position to be put in as a parent. My child didn't suffer neglect on a level that if Child Protective Services was come into my home, nothing would be found. There would be nothing to substantiate that I was so neglectful that I had allowed my child um, to be SA type of thing, where I was not there, not watching over them, leaving them alone at night. There was nothing that they were going to put on me. However, I'd still be nervous. I'd be hella nervous, right? I wouldn't not do it. But still, that launching of that investigation, I'd be an absolute nervous wreck. Because people are falsely convicted, right? In our legal system. And, I could see just something going south. Any reason for that? No, I got no basis for it. But, just on the possibility that something could happen and my kid could be taken away from me, I would be an absolute wreck of a nightmare. It would be. Chances southern states have very few services. Todd says Medicare is federal, Medicaid is state. I guess that can be true. I always thought about it as the aid was the help that you needed now. Care was, we are going to care for you now in your old age. And that's how I kind of got the two in my head straight. I always say it. Somehow you got cut off and ended up with Reese on your screen? Yeah, care is old people, exactly. That's how I kept it straight because I could never remember. And then I was like, okay, we care for our elderly, right? The care is for old people, aid is for everybody else. Yes, I love this line. It's one of my favorite Gen X jokes that they talk about, that Gen X parents were so absent that somebody on the TV, the news had to remind people, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? I laugh at that every freaking time. Yeah, yeah. Have any of you any of you seen the TikTok? I guess there's some guy, he's in his 20s, and he's laughing at the "we survived because we drank from a hose" type of thing. He goes, "Was a sink not an option?" And this Gen Xer comes on and just rakes this guy over the coals, basically. It's like, you got to understand, our parents, when we went outside, that was it. Click. That's the lock went. We went out and we were out. Yeah, there was no going back inside the house. You stayed out until the street lights came on, as Shannon says. Exactly. And you were outside. So if you wanted a drink of water, what did you do? You grabbed the garden hose and you waited for all the hot boiling water to come out to get it to at least be semi-cold, because that hose was wrapped up in the sun all day and just put out hot water pretty much. Great for a shower if you wanted one. Not so great if you wanted to cool off or just wanted a cool drink of water. So it's the TikTokers, the older woman, the Gen Xer, wraps up, says, "So no, a sink was not an option." I just love it. I just love it. Jenna says, "I was one of 6 kids. Do you think my parents knew we were? No, we weren't allowed in the house," says Resin. Exactly. You didn't even lock the doors when you grew up. Yeah, a lot of times we didn't either. And I think, we didn't lock the door of our car. It just, it was the ending of an era. It really was, because I think as we grew up, we saw those restrictions take place, right? As we grew up and we became teens, we saw the advent of the seat belt, of the bike helmet, of the no riding in the back of pickup trucks, you know, everything that we did. We saw the bumpering of I call it baby bumpering of our children, right? I mean, everything that you could possibly get hurt from, let's slap a helmet on it. Let's slap something on it to make it better for kids, more safe for kids, right? More safe. Everything was about making everything more safe. We realized how horrible our water parks were. Let's make them more safe. We realized how horrible these slides are and how many kids broke arms off the monkey bars. Let's take them out of the parks, right? No more metal slides to slice your leg open on. No more, steep, long slides because people flew off the sides. No more monkey bars because people dropped and just banged banged their arms. And, so many people broke their arm doing the monkey bars. Monkey bars were a rite of passage. You could not do the monkey bars when you were younger. No matter how hard you tried, your little arms just could not hold you up. The day I was able to go across the monkey bars, even just one at a time, that thump, 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 thump. Does anybody not know what I'm talking about? And then one day you got so strong, you could skip a bar and you got over in like half the time. That was a good day. The day I was able to jump off the swing as it was still going, I might have had a tuck and roll at the end, but dang, I mean, it certainly didn't stick the landing. But sure enough, no, I was never allowed to hitchhike. That was definitely something that was not allowed. I think that as I was a baby growing up, since I was a early 70s baby, Ted Bundy was arrested, and a lot of people were starting to become a realization of how easy pickings hitchhikers and prostitutes were. And yeah, that was just not something. Plus, we lived in an area where it wasn't something that the kids did. I lived in suburbia, and so hitchhiking just wasn't something that was done there. At least one person had access to a car at some point. Um, and so hitchhiking was what the runaways did. It didn't do to the rest of us who were just stay-at-home kids. Um, so yeah, nothing I ever experienced. Max says, I used to be in the woods at 10 p.m. as a young kid. Yeah. I mean, where were you? I mean, you're building a fort all day in the section of woods. It's more like 8 trees combined together, right? Um, oh, you're in Germany currently. Well, this is interesting. Max, are you German? Like, are you born and raised in Germany, and that's where you're hailing from, or have you moved there after being born and raised somewhere else? Saying in Germany, they didn't really do the full liability based on childproofing. It's kids get hurt sometimes and heal up, but then again, we have actual health insurance. Okay, so you are German. Oh, well, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Just one more corner of the globe I didn't know we were in. Um, I am guessing your name, as to why I can't say it then, is something in German. Just going out on a limb and guessing that. Yeah, you went out with the kids in your neighborhood. And we weren't a hitching neighborhood, so it wasn't something that we, did. We had our bikes that we rode and stuff, and when you became teenagers, it was just all about cars. So we weren't about hitching and going around to different places, and just wasn't something that we did. I think it would have been a little fun. Then again, I was raised to be my daddy's daughter, and I am like the most conservative person when it comes to taking risks with my physical being or with my money. That's the way I was raised. Yes, I am my dad's child. Definitely that way. Kids do get hurt sometimes, and I will be honest. I was not a helicopter mom, but I was much more concerned about the bumps and bruises than I should have been. I did not have a I didn't have I don't know what I'm trying to say. Um, and I didn't have comparison because I wasn't raising kids around other people who had kids at that time. Um, I wasn't raised up really around a lot of kids. Like I said, I was alone most of the time. Um, my brother was an introvert, so he wasn't popular with kids. So it's not like we had kids over to our house all the time for me to interact with them. I was very introverted as well for a number of reasons, the essay being one of them. I lived in a house of strife. Um, my parents yelled at each other. They never talked. They yelled. And so I never wanted to go home because I was always getting yelled at about something. And that just kind of perpetuated with. So I was much more of a, oh no, you fell down, than just kind of letting my kid get back up. And, I thought if I didn't show them the love, that I was concerned, that something was wrong with me, that I needed to show them that I loved them, that I was concerned that they did that, but I went overboard on that. Showing them love and concern, you certainly can, but there's also letting them have their boo-boos, letting them cry and scream, and then letting them get up and shake it off. I went a little overboard in that division. 7th hitchhiked from Pasadena, California, up to Seattle, Vancouver border when you were 14. Wow. Wow. I look at my son when he was 14. And yeah, I look at the things that I did. I went to New York City as a freshman in high school. I went to New York City with a group, and I have no idea where our supervisors were any of the time that I was on this trip. We were there for Model United Nations, but we went in 3 days early so that we could just get a slice of the city. And we walked all over. We were probably in areas we shouldn't have been, at times that we probably shouldn't have been. But I mean, we had a grand old time. Don't get me wrong. It was absolutely wonderful. But yeah, we were I certainly wasn't old enough for as 14 for doing some of the things that I was doing. But we it's called learning. Monk says, I met every doctor in our ER before 4 years old because I was a wild child. I would climb on everything and jump up and down and dealt with it. And now I bet there are parents who are scared to death to have a kid like this, depending on where they live, because it is to the point where if an injury is even somewhat like it could be child abuse, you are looked at hard. And I remember this coming down on me even once. And we took my son to the ER because he had fallen and he had gotten a nasty cut up in his head, and it was bruising up pretty darn good. And we were talked to up and down, as was my son, about what happened. And the story didn't change. So there was no reason to suspect that it was child abuse, but they had to be that suspicious in the beginning. And I can't imagine going in with a kid who's got broken bones all the time. I mean, I knew somebody like that. They just were wild, and they did just like Mach, jumped on everything and jumped off everything, and the roof of the house included, and they ended up with a bunch of broken bones. I I bet you if that happened now, 10 years ago even, and he brought that kid to the ER and they kept seeing this kid with broken bone after broken bone after broken bone, those parents, they'd probably get a good looking at, a very hard look at, and anybody else who was in their lives. Um, so that's kind of scary. You hitched all over Iowa from 13 to 16 when you left. I lived in Iowa, Todd. I think we discussed this. I was in a different part, but we lived in Philly at the same time, which is really, really weird. Um, of course, we never knew each other. You never broke a bone. Oh, from reading this, I assumed that you had at least broken one or two bones. Wow. A lot of bumps and bruises and scrapes, huh? Interesting. Shannon, you grew up in the Detroit suburbs? I did not know that. I did not know that. Where are you now? I know I've asked this. And 7th, where are you? Where are you in the world? I'm slowly getting down the basic bios, of you guys. It just definitely takes a while for me to get it through my skull. You out of here? See you later. Take care. Have a good rest of your weekend, resin. You're in Florida now. Okay, cool. Yeah, they have very good, vet schools in Iowa. I have heard that. Gotcha, you didn't even learn to ride a bike. Your mom thought it was too dangerous. Oh, no. You're in Southern California for another few months. Well, then where are you going? We already have one person moving. Jaji Gore. You must be so excited. You're down to counting in months, right? Are you counting in weeks? I bet you are. I remember, yeah, trying to remember where you are, and I know where Janet is. Now we know Mock is in Germany. I does every kid it seems just from the people that I've met, Austin's a great city. Um, wonderful. Getting extremely big. Counting in months, you stay sane. Good, 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 good for you. Good for you. It's got to be exciting and scary all at the same time, moving so far away, but wonderful. Let's see, which eye was it? It's this one. It's my left one. So I have a scar in my eyebrow. Who else has a scar in their eyebrow, right under their eyebrow, or right over their eyebrow? I mean, my brother does. I do. And just about every friend or guy I've ever dated has. It just seems like it's a rite of passage when you're a kid to get cut there with something for some reason. My brother did it on a fence. Mine was a rock inside a dirt clod that got thrown at me. And I swear, everybody I know, skin knees were very popular in my neighborhood. Because, of course, there were no pads worn biking or skating or skateboarding. You want to move, but you don't know where to go? Janet, you have a scar on your right eyebrow. Nice. Your forehead kissed the sandbox. See, I think almost all of it. You got a scar in your right eyebrow. See? It just has to be. I don't know. Have we evolved to be where this is where it is right now in our evolution? That we basically have to get one. Excuse me while I check my messages real quick. I am going to have to leave you guys here in just a little bit. I have a friend who is coming over and making dinner for me. We are, some of you may not know because I think I said it in my Wednesday, but I was still kind of, or maybe I didn't. But anyway, guys, I have fallen into one of my dream jobs, and that is combining the law and sexual assault. I know, how can that be anyone's dream job? I'm just so passionate about helping you guys, about helping us, helping survivors in any way I can. So for the next month, I will be working on a mass tort case, helping survivors file their claims for money against an organization. So I'm very excited about that. We just started our training and getting all of our systems running and all of that on Friday. And hopefully I'll get my first cases on Monday and we'll be off to the races. And I can't wait. So I'm a little weird. So I'm a lot weird. Thank you, Janet. I am thrilled. It was a job I've been angling for a while because this case has been going on for a while, and there are many different law firms throughout the country who are representing plaintiffs because there's thousands upon thousands of them. So I've seen this ad for the same type of thing many times in the last months, and it just so happened that the stars aligned here. May 31st is the deadline for running the claims. So I have at least a month worth of work. So in a job that I go job to job to job, I'm happy about being somewhere for at least 4 weeks. Hopefully there'll be work for us to do afterwards. Maybe I'll do so well they'll want me for staying on the case. I don't know. All I can do is hope and pray and wish and um, make sure I keep my mouth shut about our channel because I can't mention it to people, which is so darn hard because I know that I am going to be talking to people and somebody's going to say to me, I feel so alone with this. I have no one to talk to. And I can't say, join us in SAS and go through surviving together and we'll all talk there. I can't because I'm the lawyer. But I want to so badly. So that is the difficult part with this. If I was somewhere where I could be saying it to all the people that I was coming in contact, I would just be in heaven because I'd feel like I'd be able to offer them a resource. If no one chose to take up on it, well, that's them. But I could at least offer it. As it is, I will be offering whatever resources I can, national resources. I just so wish that I could mention the channel. I haven't lost hope that maybe I can finagle it in there somehow, but I have to talk to counsel first. My guess is going to be a no, but I can only hope. So yeah, so that's kind of it for me for today. My friend who is on his way over is in the process of launching a business right now. And I can't say anything. I probably can say a little bit, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. So he is not going to be on my channel until he actually launches his channel. He's trying to stay off social media and stay in the shadows a little bit until this business launches. But once it does, he has said that he is willing to come on and talk to me about sexual assaults in the gymnastics world. He spent a good portion of his life either as a competitor or as a coach. And I think that was going to be a fascinating interview to do. So sometime this year, hopefully, you can look forward to that. I could say there are YouTube channels and hope they find mine. Yeah, that's about as most as I can do, right? I've thought about that. And if I can get approval from counsel for me to say that, I just would not want to get removed from this because I said the wrong thing to somebody. I have not met counsel yet. I only met counsel on our side of things. I didn't meet counsel who is directly representing the plaintiffs because I'm like an assistant helper lawyer to the counsel who's actually doing the representing of the client. So I need to get their buy-in for that. And I know in order to actually get buy-in, I would need them to see the channel, which I don't have a problem with. I really don't think there's anything I've said here that's going to cause them to, fire me. Certainly not for the major part of the content that we put up here. But you never know. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'd be really, really grateful to be able to tell the survivors about the channel, but then again, it also opens me up to my higher powers that be seeing my channel and seeing what I talk about and how I talk and all that kind of stuff. So I'm still thinking a little bit. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I have been told I am eating the best tacos I have ever had in my life and award-winning guacamole today. At least that's what I was told. We'll see. We'll see if that's what it ends up being. Maybe we'll go to the store and we will actually pick up something else. I touched the camera. I guess this is as good as any time to end it. Oh my heavens. Oh my heavens. Well, guys, I am so glad you joined me here today. If you watch on replay, that's fine too. You see, we only spent about an hour talking about child on child stuff today. And as I said, I did that for a reason. I wanted to break this up for everybody here, but also for myself. We will deal with teens only, either teens as the abusers or teens abusing teens, and child on child sibling essay in a separate video. And then we will also have an interview with one of our subs here, one of our subs, got to get used to it, one of our SAS community, who is going to talk about her experience with her brother and how that came about and how she has dealt with that in her life. Shannon, thank you. Thank you for coming. You as well. Have a great rest of your weekend. Drop me a line, okay? Either in the comments or shoot me an email, survivingtogether@gmail.com. Let me know what kind of extra day you would want, what kind of extra time. I'm happy to make that happen for people if I can get enough interest. So please, let me know what works for you and we'll see what we can do. All right, guys. I am so happy to have seen all of you from all around the globe. It is an honor as always to provide this space for us to talk, to heal, to laugh, to cry sometimes. Remember that no matter what, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are stronger than you think because you are a survivor and you're very loved. So hugs and love from me. Bye, guys.